Everybody, welcome back to another edition of PD and P-Dubs Unscripted, and we got P-Dubs back with us, and we got Joe again. I think, Joe, you were on our last kind of podcast that we did with everybody.
Has it been that long?
Was I the last guest of your guests?
I think so, because last week we put out the one with my middle school elective, and I think the one before that was the one with our last night of worship.
Oh, okay, cool.
Got a lot of mileage.
Yeah, hey, good deal. All right.
So Joe's here to talk about our next night of worship, and I'll let you share a little bit about that to give a little tease before we get into the podcast.
Yes, sir. So Wednesday, June 10th, coming up pretty soon. We're going to have our night of worship at 6:30, and the theme is Let the Light In. And so I wrote a little note that the theme is about what it means to stop resisting what God is trying to reveal, heal, and awaken in us. So that's what we'll be talking about today. PD P-Dubs Unscripted. Every time I hear my voice on that, I cringe a little. We need Pastor Warren's voice for that. You've got the deep.
Oh,
good
I don't know.
voice.
I like yours. That's
I don't have the bass for it, you know. I need that low end.
PD and P-Dubs.
Yeah.
Unscripted.
Yeah, that's
sounds
what
like
we need.
We need the movie phone guy.
Yeah. Or the in a world where there was no, whatever. Like I feel like every movie preview was like in a world before time.
Yeah, 100%.
That guy.
Classic narrator voice.
Yeah. So, and I was just looking while we were listening to our theme song. Yeah, the last podcast we did before my elective was back in February. So, sorry for our fans. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Shame.
Yeah.
It's been such a long time.
And it was the truth and grace, finding the balance and growing in faith.
All right. Well,
and
cool.
So it was the three of us. So
Well, all right. I'm glad to be back here at it with you guys, and so excited for this night of worship. If you guys don't mind, I'll start with our theme verse. So
absolutely.
We tend to, at least I try to pick a theme that's related to a verse that seems to make sense.
That's a good idea.
So our theme verse is from Ephesians chapter 5, starting in verse 6. It says, "Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of these things the wrath of God comes upon the sons of disobedience. Therefore, do not become partners with them, for at one time you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of light is found in all that is good and right and true, and try to discern what is pleasing to the Lord. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them, for it is shameful even to speak of the things that they do in secret. But when anything is exposed by the light, it becomes visible. For anything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, 'Awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you.'" And so I'll just give a little background. What had inspired this theme was it was for our Easter service. We tried a new song, "Let the Light In," and when I was thinking of putting this together, like that song just kept coming back, and particularly like the ending. If you guys remember, it's like, "Open up the windows, let the light in." It's like this chant, you know. And so it just got me thinking of like, there's this component of allowing the light. It's like we can shield ourselves from it or we can cover ourselves in darkness, but there's this component of like not resisting the light that Christ is always trying to shine upon you. And so that was sort of the beginning of this idea. And so I don't know, maybe we could have a discussion around some of those things.
That
So
works.
maybe could I start by asking you guys, when you hear the phrase "let the light in," what immediately comes to mind in your own walk with God? Is there an image or an experience or something that's called forward?
Yeah, what you just said about like allowing the light of Christ in, I was kind of thinking the other way. I was thinking the light of Christ is in us by the presence of the Holy Spirit. Like we are children of God. We are children of the light, right?
Yeah.
We, when we baptize someone, we say, "You are a light unto this world. Let your light shine."
Yeah.
So the light is in us, but it is the darkness that is coming at us that is really doing its very best to break out to shut down the light and to cover the light with darkness.
Yeah,
and I think this is all about like, Ephesians 5 and 6 is all about like spiritual warfare stuff.
Yeah.
Of like the power of the prince of darkness, Satan. And so he comes at us externally and he seems to get a good foothold on us.
Yes.
To where it not only his darkness begins to mute our light, but we seem, because of our fleshly desires, begin to take hold of the darkness and like enjoy. I don't know if the right word is enjoy, but we take hold of it and live in it, in the darkness, and let it be a part of us. So that's I don't know if that's an answer to your question, but to me that was like, yeah, we got the light, and it's Satan really is muting us.
Super interesting. Two things I want to respond to there. You said, maybe not joy is not the right word, but there is an element. I always call it the juice. There, it's like when you're gossiping about people, you get this feeling. It's like I call it the juice. You get this feeling of being superior because, well, that's what criticism does. It implies you're above them looking down. You know? So anytime you're criticizing people, there is a part of you that it feels good. Now I would call that a cheap juice.
Yeah,
and that's where willingness comes in, right? We have to have the willingness to trade that for this higher thing. But then the second thing is what you said. The light is already within us, but we do all these things to sort of cover it up. So maybe we should change to let the light out. Maybe that's what the name of this should be, is instead of let the light in. But it's interesting, those dual imageries, right? It's like something about having an internal readiness or permissiveness to allow the light of Christ out, but also in some sense, right?
Yeah, because Christ does come to us.
He's pursuing us.
Yeah, he does come to us.
Yeah,
and so he gets into us. So
it's like almost something like don't keep it under the basket or whatever, like the Matthew text. And like when I was thinking about this, as you were asking initially, and then as Pastor was talking, I was thinking about how like I don't know, it's easy for me to get caught up in like what people say or like the negativity and feed into that, or like somebody says something negative to me, I just sit there and dwell on it, and then lets that darkness kind of cover your life, and you let those kind of, as you were saying, the devil comes externally to us. The devil comes externally sometimes through those negative things, and it just surrounds us with darkness, and that's where we need to let the light of Christ shine. Be like, you know what, I'm not a failure, I'm not a mess up, that I am a child of God, that I am loved.
Yeah. I think too, like this letting in versus letting out. And it's the same sort of thing with the devil, right? There's like this external component coming in, but there's also this internal component coming out, where it's like, whether it's influence on our thoughts or our behaviors, like I would say like materialistic, atheistic types reject the Bible for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons sometimes is paradoxes or formal contradictions. But I think that's actually usually evidence of something deeper. It's this thing we're talking about, where it's like the light both comes in, but it shines from within out. It's also and it's the same thing with the darkness thing. It's like darkness can come from the external impressing upon us, but if that takes root, it also starts to
becomes in us,
and now we're putting it back out into the world. So it's like this feedback loop.
Yep.
And so it's like the correct feedback loop we want is the one of like love and grace with God. There's this old iconic.
I know what you're trying to say. Like iconography. I can't say
iconographic image, I think.
Yeah.
But it's an old one from the early church of like mouth to mouth with the Lord, and it's like this idea of like the grace you receive, you return, and that it's like the prayer praying in you kind of idea.
In the sense that reflecting, like we're all supposed to reflect the light of Christ out into this world, and do we reflect the light or do we reflect the darkness?
Yes. And so I think it's easy for us sometimes as Christians to slip into language where like it's so easy to paint the temptations of darkness as like Of course, let me try to organize what I'm trying to say here. Of course, Christ in the light is superior, but we wouldn't be tempted by things if there wasn't some draw there, you know? And that's why, like, the image of the juice is like, when we're in church and stuff, we're in this environment and we're hearing the gospel, it's really easy to be like, yeah, well, the devil's clearly so silly and such an idiot. And, you know, I won't have anything to do with that. But then, like, in our day-to-day walk, like, these temptations, they're called temptations for a reason, right? Like, there's things that are like, they're trying to draw in
They're
your
enticing.
attention. Yes.
And the thing is, like, the devil has a playbook on each of us. So the ways, the temptations that he puts in front of all three of us is going to be different because he knows, oh, that temptation, that's not going to get P-Dubs. It's not going to get Joe, but that'll get PD.
Yeah.
Or this one will get Joe, but it won't get the other two. Or this one will get P-Dubs, but not the other two. So, like, the devil knows exactly what things, because as you're talking about that juice, like, he knows what juice we lean towards, or that we need, that we want to feel that, like, enjoyment or like that satisfaction in that. But for other people, it might not be that same satisfaction.
Yeah, I think that's exactly spot on. There's, like, the devil is customizing the temptation.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a game plan. It's like, you know, I think of like a sports analogy. You know, teams have a game plan. They know the strengths and weaknesses of the other team. The devil knows our strengths. He knows our weaknesses. Yeah. And he's going to attack our weaknesses. And that's where, for us being in God's word, reflecting the light of Christ, we have a game plan for against Satan.
Yeah, I think it's important to notice that because it can seem so obvious from an intellectual point of, like, obviously I want to choose the light. But, like, in practical practice in your day-to-day life, like, man, the darkness is so tempting in all these different ways. And if we don't acknowledge the power of that, it's easy to unconsciously fall into dark habits because it's outside of our awareness. We're almost not even identifying the dark as such.
Well, it's almost like, I think it's in Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis when he's like talking as Screw Tape, I think, to Wormwood. I think Screw Tape was the higher like devil, and Wormwood was his like underling of, oh, just show man a picture of a devil, a little cartoon devil, that he's not going to be afraid of him. And that idea of like, oh, the devil, well, God beat him, but no, he's powerful. And when we have that image of just that cartoon, oh, look at that silly little devil. He's just that little cartoon figure that we see. Yeah. He's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
When in actuality, he does have power, and he knows how to lure us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I was looking at verse 7 while you guys were kind of kicking that around. It says, do not become partners with them, the sons of disobedience, in verse 8. For at one time you were darkness. So I think that's Paul's reminder that prior to Christ and the Holy Spirit and God being, you know, calling us children of God, we are in darkness. And Old Testament talks about that our heart is filled with darkness and sinfulness. So I mean, that's really, you know, who we are as a human being without God. Yeah. So that darkness, as you say, is in us because of our fallen nature and our sinfulness. We so desire to feed that darkness.
Yeah.
And so that's why the light of Christ, when John says, people who are walking in darkness have seen a great light, and, you know, the darkness has not overcome the light.
Yeah.
So this light that is in all of us, inherently Christ, outshines and you know, takes care of the darkness, but yet it's still in us. And so, as PD was saying, he knows how to get at us, Satan does, and he wants to keep us into the dark things that gratify the fleshly desires, and then make us think, well, God's word is not important. Right. You know, he's really reducing the priority of godly things.
Yes.
And making our mind and our heart think, oh yeah, I can spend time in these gratifying myself with these behaviors. Yeah. And God loves me. You know, I know it's not the best thing for me to do, but you find yourself doing them. And
it's like this classic motif of Satan where it's like this false substitution. It's like part of what draws you towards sin is, I would call it like the false light. In some ways we could think of darkness as the false light because there is an allure to it. I like the saying, sin feels like freedom until you try to stop. Mm-hmm. So anyone who's been addicted to anything, which, you know, full admittance here, I've sadly had a lot of experience with that in my past. It certainly feels like freedom, and it feels like the party, and it feels like a good time, and it feels like, you know, independence over your own life. Again, until you try to stop. And so again, I've encountered that a few times in my life. And so I know firsthand, like there is it's the trick of the devil. It's like, can I show you the false light? It's something like appearing like the shiny object to lure you into short-term gratification. And so there's something that is like to a lot of people unappealing about, let's say, the long view that Christ is showing us. There's something that's also unattractive about it in the sense of people. It's like you're also called to carry your cross and to sacrifice. And so to like short-term hedonistic pleasure-seeking gratification, that's the last thing that you want. And so this is part of the devil's trick, is to make the light seem like darkness. Well, I know that was part of my resistance to becoming more spiritual or more Christian, was like, it felt like, well, the party's over now. And now like Joe can no longer get to be Joe because I have to cut off these things that I identify with and I don't want to let go of. So it's like this resistance to letting go of the short-term gratification of whatever. For me, in the scene I was in, it was like drinking and drugs and music and sex and like all the usual pleasure-seeking temptations, So yeah, there's just something interesting there in that like Satan is able to confuse you about which is actually the source of light, and that darkness in itself can almost have this false luminescence quality, if that makes sense.
And like that idea of like God's trying to live in our freedom and our fun. I don't know if I've used this on the podcast, but there was a book by Kyle Idleman, and he was talking about how like his family had a goldfish, and he felt bad for the little goldfish because it's just a small little bowl. What freedom, he doesn't get to swim around a lot. But then it was, well, he's like, I got an idea. I'm going to put him in the swimming pool in the backyard, because then he has that whole big pool to swim around in. And he didn't think about the chlorine. And the fish got all that freedom to swim around in the swimming pool, but what happened? It died. And he's like, isn't that like our life of faith? We think God's trying to limit us as the devil entices us with all this freedom, all this, look at all this fun you'll have. This fish will have this whole swimming pool, not a small little fish bowl.
Yeah.
But then when we get all that freedom, it leads to our destruction.
Yeah, it's that exactly right. Yeah, it's like that false substitution thing. Like, yeah, 100%. And I don't think we get a choice as to whether or not we suffer. We just get a choice as to what we're going to suffer for. So it's either like suffer for Christ or suffer for your sins. That's sort of the choice we're presented with as humans. It's not as again, on the surface, it's not immediately obvious, like that you shouldn't be hedonistic and gratify your own pleasures. Like I lived that way for many years, partly because I just had this thought of like, well, who really knows? It was this kind of unbounded, like I was unwilling to sort of bow to a hierarchy. And part of what that did is I had this quasi-spiritualism where everything is kind of in this vague, ephemeral bubble. And you can't really say where our place is in the universe. And it leads to this moral relativism where like, again, it's this idea of like, it's the pool, right? I had this feeling of like, well, I'm being liberated because I'm not bound by these theological thoughts. And but it turns out like that those theological walls, so to speak, is God creating you the perfect environment for which humans can thrive in. And it's weird. Like you don't exactly know that until you're in it and doing it and practicing it and seeing how it's revealed in you, know? It's weird. There's not as much of like this immediate short-term payoff quality, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, a lot of what you guys are saying makes sense, especially as, like you grow up in our society. Like you, as a young person, you look at the adults and how they are behaving and the things that they can do that you can't do as a child.
Yeah.
Like, well, you can't curse.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Like in our house growing up, you can't like say, swear words until you're 18.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but once, 18, it's off, the lid's off. And so like you kind of see this take place, or like, oh, you can't have a beer or have alcohol until you're 21. And, and there's like, in our society, there's like, big push on 21st birthday. You're going to go out and get smashed, right? And you're going to have a great time. And, you certainly could. And so like the lid is off, right? Like the societal lid.
And you almost go overboard.
You'll go overboard. And so now you've got this newfound freedom. You could be cursing, you could be drinking, you could be going after people of the opposite sex. And like now, where are the checkpoints? Where are the guardrails? Like, so you're flying high, feeling free. And then it's so temporary. And then something happens and your life is forever changed. Could be like pulled over for DUI. Could be like, consume too much. An accident where you harm another person, or you have drank so much or taken too much drugs that you've almost killed yourself. And like now all the repercussions come around, and so that's who we are as human beings. And so it's just interesting, like as a, and I'm sure this does happen. Like you see good qualities in people, like, oh, I'd like to emulate them. They're a very kind, very generous person as you're growing up and you see them, you identify that. But I wonder how often as young people did we identify like, oh, that person, well, they're in the Word all the time. They're really connected to God. And, like it doesn't get the mileage, in society.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And that's the thing that matters the most. And we don't really, the light bulb doesn't go on until we get that opportunity to take the guardrails off. And fall. Well, I don't know.
You were talking there, you were getting very confessional there, saying about the uses of the law that we have in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod with the curb, that first use being that curb.
Yeah.
It kind of keeps us, so as, I'm Googling here, I'm just like, by threatening punishment, it helps maintain order, restrain violent outbreaks of sin, and protect the public from lawlessness so that the gospel can be preached in peace. So the curb kind of helps us. So, if you're driving, you hit the curb, you're like, oh, hit the curb, I'm
going the wrong way.
Going the wrong way. And so...
Yeah. I think what can help make a more compelling argument to young people too is understand. I like the notion that like all sin is a type of misordered good. So like, God has this hierarchy in mind for us, and of course him and Christ are at the top. But like, let's take like food, for instance. Like food is a inherent good, but if it's misordered in your hierarchy, like you will damage your body, right? And so it's often the same thing with like, I think some of our sinful tendencies is like, certainly where Satan got into my life is there's a part of my personality that's extroverted and probably part by dint of being a creative person, a musician. I enjoy performing and making people happy that way. I like to make people laugh. Those can be useful things. In the environments that I was in, sure, I could be the party guy and the fun guy or whatever. But like a better use of those same qualities is something like leading worship. Like when I sort of fell into this position of leading worship, it was like all of these disparate parts of myself that had been misused came together to form the skill basis necessary to like actually lead a church and worship. And it had never occurred to me until I started doing it.
Yeah.
And so it was this really shocking thing a few years ago when I came here to you guys and it just kind of happened. It was like, it also showed the through line of Christ through my whole life, where it was like I was being prepared, I think, for this. Not that it was necessary for all the sinfulness that occurred before, but again, this wonderful mark of God that even the darkness, even the things that are objectively bad are transformed into good.
Yeah,
it's not like it suddenly justifies my poor choices in the past.
Exactly.
But it does transform them now. And so, anyways, I think that's part of what can help younger people form a compelling argument, is that like, it doesn't mean that it's the end of the party. It means that your gifts will be rightly ordered, you know?
Yeah.
And so again, like my extroversion, improperly ordered, is like me at the bar, like on top of the table,
Yeah.
Sure, you're making everybody laugh and that feels good.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I got addicted to that kind of thing. So much better that extroversion could be used for something like having a thoughtful discussion or like introducing a topic at church on Sunday, such a better use of that same thing. So that's what I would encourage young people or anybody listening, if you have that feeling. One thing that popped in my head, you had shared with me, Pastor Donald, who's the lead singer of the band Papa Roach, recently converted to Christianity.
Andy shared it to you, I think, initially.
Yes. But it dovetails perfectly with this thing. It's like he was like, the two things I never wanted to be growing up was sober and a Christian, right? But it's that same idea of like, he had the image in his mind of like, well, party's over. As soon as I go down that route, like I become one of these boring old fogies, and that was sort of his image, But as he goes on to say, like, the transformation manifested much differently than
Which is crazy how you see that play out in their lyrics now, like from their first album back in, I think, late 90s, early 2000s, like high school age when I got that album, to now where he's talking about like how God is there helping him and that he goes to his knees on prayer in the dark times.
Yeah.
Which is just crazy. Like, when I was in high school listening to Papa Roach, never did I imagine 20 some odd years later he'd be singing songs like this.
Yeah, 100%.
But it's like that likes, like, you know, as you're talking about for like young people and like just being up on the bar table, making people laugh. It's no different than social media. People post things on there just for the likes because of the release of dopamine.
Yeah.
Like I remember at my first church, we had a kid and he was like, posted something kind of inappropriate. I was like, hey, you know, would God approve that? Well, my friends would like it. My friends were going to laugh.
And that's friends as God, right? So like this is that misordered good thing.
Yeah.
Like, friends are good, but if they're too high up in the hierarchy, they're superseding Christ in your mind.
Like, what if it disappoints God? Well, my friends laugh.
Yeah.
Well, that's who we're here to please, man or God.
And I'm not to judge. That was exactly my thinking for a long time. It's
we all
it got a laugh out of my buddies. So like that was, and in some ways that's still, that takes hold of me where like, I know that I'm saying something wrong or inappropriate, but I know it's going to get a laugh. And so like the temptation is so great, I still go for it. And so I'm still trying to integrate that positively into my life, you know? But yeah, I think it's this idea of misordered goods, you know?
Well, and that just shows the power of ego in the human is like, you know, we're all looking to feed our egos, you know, and so when that starts happening, you know, it's like you begin to think you're more than you really are, and then pride comes, and then you got a long way down, because you're gonna fall.
Pride goeth before the fall, right?
Yeah. So, what you guys were talking about really correlates with the scripture. It's Paul encourages us. He says, "You were once walking in the darkness, but now presently." You are children of the light. And so he says, walk as children of the light. So for the fruit of the light is found in all that is good and right and true. Well, what is all that is good? Where can we find all that is good and right and true? It's in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So that's where you find it, and that's where you try and walk in. But yet, all good comes to those who love the Lord. Like, so all of our experiences, past, present, and even future, where we fall into the darkness, God can use us to walk alongside someone else relatably and say, dude, I understand what your struggle is right now. I've been there, you know, and there is a better, more excellent way.
Yes.
And so can I just talk to you about that? And that kind of goes to what you were saying, like, you know, I can use my extrovertedness in a way that is fruitful to God, that's pleasing to Him, right?
Even like, Joe, you're talking about your history of some of the things and choices. You could relate to somebody that has gone through those things better than me, who maybe hasn't had those issues.
Yeah.
Sure. And that's where I think part of my personal interest lies into talking to people of different faiths and different backgrounds. There's a lot of like this, as I described, this kind of vague, ephemeral, new ageism. A lot of people like to say, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. And to give the devil his due, what they're pointing out is like the parts of let's say religious history that have devolved into like these really rigid things that have ended up in not great outcomes for people. Like that's part of what they mean by saying I'm not religious, but they don't know exactly what they're saying. And so I enjoy having those conversations with people because I was there for a long time, you know, and so I can definitely relate to it, but I also see how they're so close. If you can just help nudge them a little bit. And this is where too, like part of allowing the light in this theme is like, I think we're at our best in our evangelizing others when it's formulated as an invitation, you know, when we get too into like the kind of thing, like, and I'm going to tell you, and like, you automatically set up a resistance.
Yeah,
you know?
you do.
And so that's why I think, you know, part of the best way to evangelize is honestly our lives. I love this quote. It's like the Christian shoemaker is not a good shoemaker by putting little crosses on the shoes. It's by making good shoes. It's like through each act and deed, your life either glorifies God or it doesn't. And so if you are seeking to do things properly and at the best that you can, you know, that is your, what's the way to say it? There are 4 gospels. You are the 5th. I'd really like that phrase because it's like, you know, use words when necessary. And there's certainly context for that. Like our conversation is evidence of that. But really the most way that like you're going to attract people into the faith is exactly that. It's an attraction. It's an invitation. It's people see what you have and go like, how do I get some more of that kind of thing? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think that ties into this.
Yeah, the whole actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
It's like I've used, I think, in the podcast before, you say like you have a Christian bumper sticker, but you're out there cutting people off, giving them the finger.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm a proud member of Immanuel Lutheran Church in school. And then you see them drive and cut you off. It's like, well, maybe that's not the church I want to go to if that's how their people act.
I've heard that saying.
Yeah.
Everyone's a Christian until they get in the parking lot. You know, and it's like there's a lot of truth in that. Of like we don't want to get in the habit of just putting on our Sunday church hat and feeling like we checked off that box and now we're a good person. It's like, well, how you living Monday to Saturday?
That's
Right.
right.
And like, another, I know you've had a similar experience. Like, remember one time I was at Target and I was annoyed with something because they weren't doing what they're supposed to, and I was kind of getting a little angry with the cashier. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, wait, I'm wearing an Immanuel shirt with the Immanuel logo and the cross on there. It's like, oh, maybe I not need to be as
It's
much
a powerful
as a jerk.
reminder, isn't
Like,
it?
like, yes, I'm still a sinful human being, yet I'm wearing a cross on my shirt.
Yeah, 100%.
Right over my heart, because I think that's where the polo logo is. It's like, oh, this is not saying good witness for other Christians that I'm being a jerk here because something wasn't going my way.
Mm-hmm.
But it is those good reminders, It's like maybe it's unfortunate that sometimes we need to be reminded that way. I live in a quasi state of paranoia because, my wife and I have had our dance studio here now for like 20 years. And so like we're recognized a lot around town, but like, the dance side has many more parents than the music side. And so my wife knows all of them, but I don't know all of them. So sometimes we're spotted in public, and I would have no idea that people who knew us are watching us until they came and greeted Jamie. So whenever I'm by myself, I do have this slight paranoia of like, what parents from our studio that I don't know see me right now, and I'm unaware of it. And so it is maybe it's not the best motivation, but it certainly is effective in terms of being able to like make you aware of your behavior and want to straighten up a little bit, So again, maybe not the greatest source, but it's certainly effective,
Let me throw something at you. Like, do you guys ever in your life try and compartmentalize things? And what I mean by that is various areas of your life. Let's say your work life, your friend life, your family life. It's kind of a Seinfeld thing. Like, I don't ever, like, I used to be of the mindset when I was younger, the people that I associate at work, I'm not going to bring them into my friend group because my friend group is my homies, like, and then I got my family and I don't know, like sometimes my friends will, cross in, that's more natural, but I would find myself compartmentalizing even to the point where, Gwen and I were getting to know each other and I would talk, she worked with me. This is before we started dating and like we were getting to know each other. And I would always refer to my friends as my friends. And I'd be telling her a story at work about my friends. And she goes, well, do your friends have names?
No.
And I'm like,
No.
It's not relevant because I don't want these worlds to collide.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to light and darkness, kind of where you were getting at, Joe, I think like when we're in church, it's easy to become like light appearing, right? Like, and maybe it is very genuine. I like so look forward to worship. And that's a time for our light to shine. But then, when we're away from there, who are we? In our examples of in the community, are we forgetting our light and we're just kind of gravitating to another part of who we are? And so then you get into, like, I think Paul wrote about, like, doing things in secret. What about our secret sins?
Yeah.
That we feel... It's not impacting anybody. This is my secret thing. No one needs to know about it. Well, we're fooling ourselves because like if it begins to take over who we are inside, it's going to come out and be exposed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it doesn't work in compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes faith, because I was there, I was like, oh, my faith is private. It's just between me and God and the people in my family. But yet I could go and do stupid stuff, in the name of having a great time.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, who are you really?
Yeah.
It becomes like, how do you remember where you're at so you act the way you think you should?
Yeah.
Why don't you just be who you're supposed to be?
You become chameleon-like and fragmented in your identity. And like that fragmentation over a long period of time, it really does take people out. There's another saying, like there's there's nothing sadder than the oldest guy at the frat party. Like, the 40, 50-year-old guy who like cannot let it go. It's like, bro, what are you doing here? Like,
You're old.
But yeah, it's that disintegration of identity, and that's partly what I love about Christ and God and the Bible and Scripture is it gives us this really clear, especially the longer time we spend in church and in the Word, it really gives us this clear hierarchy of where our identity is found and where it's pointed, and like that's such a relief to people, maybe not initially, but
it is a big thing, that identity, who you are. Like, you're talking about compartments. I think about like when Angie and I first started dating, where that was a big thing of like, you're a pastor, but you all are also a regular human being.
Yeah.
Right.
And that especially with Josh and stuff, her son, and like that idea of like, well, you're my pastor, teacher at the school. Wait, you are a normal person. You do normal things, that compartmentalizing. And like, it was easier for Angie to kind of get past that initially compared to Josh. But it is, I'm like, yeah, I guess I am a pastor, and that is a big part of my life, but I am still just a regular human being. And then set, like, knowing those different compartments, as you were talking about, like, this flipping the switch. Like, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and they're talking to Mike Breen, and he was talking about another announcer for the NBA. And he's like, he does the most impressive thing. That man, when he is not announcing a game, he cusses like a sailor, like you wouldn't believe. But I've never heard him say a swear.
Wow, so he toes the line of professionalism.
Yeah, and
right?
he's like, that is the most impressive thing, that you would think at one time you would let it just one thing slip.
Yeah.
When it's so common to his normal vocabulary. But once he gets like the headset on, so to speak, he flips a switch and he doesn't cuss whatsoever.
It harkens back to this strange paradox thing. Is like there is great honor in serving the role that you've been given to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's going to mean cutting off like your ugly edges, like in this case of like not cussing during an announcement. But it is also another thing to be bifurcated and so compartmentalized that you're essentially, again, the fragmented identity thing. And this has been something that's been just super heavy on my mind and heart since I was young, because I was the classic like kid that was like too much. Everything I did was just too much. I was too loud. I was too aggressive. I was too much. And so having that message reflected back to me in every environment, home, school, like wherever, I think it created in me like this deep craving. As partly why I also got really attracted to punk rock, because punk rock says like, you will listen. I don't care if you want to or not. We will be heard.
You're gonna be loud and you'll listen.
Yeah, I won't be in your face. And so like it helped me accept a part of myself and bring some unity there. But anyways, it's a long way of saying that like I've always been very sensitive to like, I want to be the same guy to the CEO as I am to the janitor. I want to be the same guy to my pastors as I am to the congregation, as I am to my students. And that's a tricky thing. I think that's partly why I feel so compelled to have a very confessional attitude when I'm speaking to the church, because it's like I don't want to make any pretense that I'm somehow holier than I am. There are things in my life that I'm still trying to clean up with the help of God, of course.
Yeah. Aren't we all?
It's like, and so I try to be very transparent that way, because it's like, don't think I am more than I am. I want to make that very clear to people.
Right, as you're talking, reminds me of, I think it was a show. I know there was like SNL spoof to put that whole undercover boss, where the boss will dress up like in a different, like where it doesn't look, and see how the people treat him. Like I'm thinking of the SNL skit where is it Kylo Ren from Star Wars, and so he's like the big villain, and then he's like the higher up of the Galactic Empire, and then he's like, oh, I'm just gonna be a regular old like stormtrooper or like a regular old guy, and they're all like treating him horribly, and then it's like, oh wait, you're the boss actually. So it's like, how do you treat people? That idea. That's what I was saying, that idea of that undercover boss, where bosses will dress down or change a little bit of their appearance, and people treat them completely differently because they're not in the same context of what they normally see them as.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. What I've found too with people, like when you are, I like the saying, like people are about as comfortable with you as you are with them. And so I've made it a point that like I will not treat people special based on their role. And some people like it's such a relief to them, like especially if I have a handful of people in my orbit that are unbelievably wealthy, and they are not used to just being treated normally, but they desire it so much because their interactions have become like every interaction I have with another human being, there's like this subtext, right? Because they know they might be able to extract resources from you. And so it's this terrible burden in some sense when you become that wealthy, because it's very difficult to discern who is genuine with you.
Yeah.
So anyways, I would say that's a slight gift you can give to people by being yourself everywhere, is whether you would see them as lowly in the nature of the world or high in status. It is a relief to people to just be met where they are and for you to be as you are.
Totally. And I see that when my children have, significant others, and so I meet their families, right? And so, the typical thing is, oh, what do your mom and dad do for a living? So my kids are faced with, oh, my dad's a pastor.
Yeah.
So that takes a mindset like, oh, your dad's a pastor.
Yeah.
And so there's a preconceived notion, perhaps, in like how, when they meet me, number one, how should they behave around me?
Yeah.
Or how will they expect me to behave? And so there is a lot to just being yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it really lowers the tension of because I've seen it. They're like, wow, you have a personality that's not what I would have expected being a pastor. So
that
be
idea
yourself.
Of how do you introduce yourself in those situations you're talking? It's not like, you're going around like, I'm Pastor Warren when you meet somebody for the first time. Like, if I'm meeting somebody outside of the church, I'm not like, I'm Pastor Donald, and thus you must refer to me that way. I'm just like, hey, I'm Donald.
Well, they should.
Well, if anything, it should be Reverend Doctor on.
Yes, exactly. Let's get it right.
I think at our last night of worship, you guys met my buddy Mike, but Mike is the epitome of a guy who will not treat you different. I'm not sure if you felt that with your interaction with Mike.
It was great. I loved it.
It's a relief in some sense, right? Now, you don't want to stray into being disrespectful, and I would say that, you also still want to honor people's roles. I'm very aware that when I'm talking to both, I'm also talking to my pastor. So, I want to honor your position, but I also want to be real with you guys. And so,
and I think we want that too.
Right. Yeah. You and I haven't talked about old emo bands like Taking Back Sunday. Yeah, it's a normal thing, or that we were at the same Atari's concert back in the day.
Yeah, and reciprocally, I think it's a relief to congregants that you guys are humans. Of course, you hold this high position and you're representing Christ, and that's all important to honor. But at the end of the day, you're humans, like the rest of us, just struggling.
Well, and I hope in those situations that we're describing relationally, that where we're hoping that people see us as normal human beings who have interests, who have personalities, one kind or another, senses of humor, likes, dislikes, that somewhere in the connection of our relationship over time, that they will know that they could come to us if they have a need. I know this is your thing. I'm really struggling here.
Yeah.
Can I just authentically talk to you about that? And that, bang, that's the best thing.
Yeah.
Some sidebar off to the side or whatever. No preconceived notions, but just recognizing an aspect of who we are.
Yeah.
And seeing if we could at minimum offload that from them so they could just talk about it.
Relate in a human level.
Right. Yeah. The barriers are taken down. I think of one of my favorite teachers at the seminary, Dr. Seleska. I never had him really for a class until my fourth year. I think I had him for a Hebrews reading class second year, towards the end of the year. But I got to know him because he'd always play pickup basketball with us. So I got to know him on the basketball court, and it kind of broke down those barriers. He's somebody I feel comfortable going to, that if I do have a question theologically or about being a pastor, I could go to him because I know him from playing basketball. But he has all this years of experience as a pastor, as a professor, compared to, he's my professor. There's a separation there, but he was just one of the guys. I remember joking around with him in the gym and going to his house with friends and different things and watching Super Bowls and stuff.
Yep. That matters.
Yeah,
it really does.
Ties back into our theme of partly by participating in allowing the light to come from within or without, however you want to think about it. That's part of how we enter into communion with God and with Christ and develop a relationship and relational trust. And so part of why that sticks out in my mind is one of the things that the research on now is very clear is that you cannot learn from someone if you don't like them. So kids will learn from teachers that they don't like, and they'll get the facts to pass the test and then immediately brain dump. But and think in your own experience, all of the most impactful teachers you've ever had, with someone you had some kind of so it's the same thing with your pastors, and with Christ. Is you want to build that relationship because that's actually how you're influenced. Like we influence each other by relationship, right? It's active participation, dialogos, and so yeah, I think that's an important aspect. Why we want to encourage people to develop this relationship with Christ is if you're hoping to be shaped or influenced by a higher power, by the light. It is relational, and
absolutely,
and so yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good stopping point to let everybody's appetite for the night of worship coming up. It'll be a week from when.
If this is an appetite wetter, I'd hate to. Well, what is it going to be? In the Full Metal, right?
I've got so many other questions and talking points. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
But yeah, so this is coming out on Wednesday, June 3rd, and so a week from today, when you hear this, if you're listening on the day it comes out,
June 10th.
June 10th.
June 10th.
But yeah, so this is coming out a week before this podcast.
Okay, sorry.
So yeah, if you're listening on the day it comes out on Wednesday, June 2nd or 3rd. I mean, sorry, I'm looking at the calendar.
I'm messing everyone up now.
So Wednesday, June 10th, 6:30 in the sanctuary, night of worship. Thank you and God's blessings. And Joe, you can hit the blue button for the outro song.
All right. Thank you for letting me press the button, Pastor. See you guys.